All right. So we have finished the Brahmajala Sutta, haven't we? Hmm? And I have also updated the website where you can now find the chart, the link to the chart that I have showed you, but I got a bit delayed to show it on the website. So it's on the website now, which you can access. Now, today I have chosen a beautiful sutta that I absolutely love, right? And that is the Lakkhana Sutta, right? The Lakkhana Sutta I see as a guide for everyone who feels or who has some sort of, wandering, who wonders, why is it that I don't have this in my life? Or why is it that I do all of this, but this is the way that, things are for me? And all of these things. The Lakkhana Sutta acts as a guide on its own account, on its own, to the way a person should fulfill goodness, and on account of that goodness, how it reflects or bears fruit in our lives, where now our lives become however wonderful it could be, right? However wonderful it could be. Why is it that a lot of people have off their cameras today? I can only see a few people. Right. All right. So I thought that this sutta, this Lakkhana Sutta, would be a good sutta for us to sort of go into, because we are now stepping from something as profound and deep and also a bit far-fetched as the Brahmajala Sutta, to something which we can really practice in our day-to-day life, as the Lakkhana Sutta. Something from the Brahmajala Sutta, I thought, it would be nice to sort of loosen up the environment by sort of starting off with the Lakkhana Sutta, right? So let us get down to it. So page number 180, right? Page number 180. The discourse on marks. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One was staying in Anathapindika's park on Jetha's grove near Savatthi. There, the Blessed One addressed the monks, bhikkhus. Bhante, the monks, replied to the Blessed One in assent. The Blessed One said this: the wheel-turning king, right? The wheel-turning king. I hope you get the meaning of who the wheel-turning king is. Who is the wheel-turning king? Chakra? Yeah?
Chakravarti.
Yes.
Swaminathan, which page did you say again?
180.
118. Thank you.
180.
80. Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Because there are these 32 marks of a great man. For the great man endowed with them, there is only two destinies, no other. Two destinies, no other. Why is that? Because a man who has perfected and sort of behaved and disciplined and perfected himself to such an extent where he is now the bearer of these 32 marks cannot do anything other than these two good things in the world. What are these two good things? Right? If he remains living a house life, he becomes a wheel-turning monarch. That is a universal monarch or a Chakravarti, as Devi reminded us. Dhamma Raja, a just king, a conqueror of the four quarters, a country blessed with stability, and possessor of the seven jewels. A possessor of the seven jewels. Now, what are the seven jewels? Right? The wheel jewel, chakra, ratana, the elephant jewel, the horse jewel, the gem jewel, the woman jewel, the householder jewel, the commander jewel, right? Now, these are treasures of a universal monarch which does not fade. It does not fade. Meaning, through, for example, if we were to take the gem jewel, right? Throughout his reign in the world, throughout his lifetime, he will have the possession of these jewels. He will have the possession of these jewels, right? There is only one mentioning in the whole Tripitaka where a Chakravarti lost one of the jewels. Does any one of you know where this is? Does any one of you know? Where a Chakravarti, for the first time, lost one of the jewels whilst he was living. Any ideas? No? It is said that the only time that the Chakravarti lost one of his jewels is when the Chakravarti, being the Chakravarti, determined to go above the seat of enlightenment that was in Bodh Gaya, right? So in Bodh Gaya, the seat of enlightenment where the Buddha attained enlightenment, right, which as I have heard is not right near the enclosure of the Bodhi tree, but actually where the statue is. For those of you who have been to Bodh Gaya in India, right, that where the statue is, that this sort of place is a place that the Buddha attained enlightenment. And it is said that no one can sort of go above this sort of place. And the Chakravarti, it is said in the story that the Chakravarti determined or, said, I am the Chakravarti, I will go above this place. And in doing so, he horse or elephant, either the horse or the elephant passed away after that, right? That was the first recorded thing. So let us go on. More than 1,000 sons will be his, brave, heroic in form, crushing the armies of others. He dwells on this earth, bound by the ocean, holding it in his sway with neither rod nor sword. The supreme, that is one. The second is a supreme Buddha. However, if he were to leave the house from homeless life and become homeless life, he becomes the Arahant, fully self-awakened one, rolling back the veil in the world. And what bhikkhus are these 32 marks of a great man, for which the great man endowed with them, there is only one of two destinies, no other. That is to say, if he remains living as a house life or a householder, he becomes a wheel turner, a Dhammaraja, a conqueror of the four quarters, a country blessed with stability, the possessor of the seven jewels. These are the seven jewels, that is to say, the wheel jewel, elephant jewel, all the way to the commander jewel as a seventh. That more than 1,000 sons, all of that to rolling back the wheel, right? Then 32 marks of a great man, Dvatinsa Mahapurisa Lakkhana, right? Now, as Buddhist from Sri Lanka, we know or we recite Dvattinsa Mahapurisa Lakkhana in the Jayapirita, where we sort of determine success or determine upon the truth of the Dvattinsa Purisa Lakkhana, right? The Dvattinsa Purisa Lakkhana. Here, bhikkhus, the great man has feet with a level thread. Supatita pada. Bhikkhus, that the great man has feet with a level thread, this bhikkhus is indeed a great man's mark of the great man. Furthermore, bhikkhus, the soles of a great person's feet are wheels, each with 1,000 spokes, all rimmed and hubbed, complete in every way. Complete in every way. Bhikkhus, that on the soles of the great person's feet are wheels, each with 1,000 spokes, all rimmed and hubbed, complete in every way. This bhikkhus is indeed a great man's mark of the great man. Furthermore, bhikkhus, the great man has projecting heels. Bhikkhus, that the great man has projecting heels, this is indeed. And then projecting heels, we will go into what they are later on. Long fingers, diga anguli, soft, tender hands and feet, and hands and feet are net-like, right? Reticulated and evenly spaced, right? Ankles are high raised. Ankles are high raised. Legs are like those of antelopes, right? Meaning legs are those very strong, right? Very strong and very buffed looking, yeah? Without stooping, can touch and rub his knees with both hands at once. Male organ is covered with a sheath, a golden complexion, a gold-like skin. Skin is so delicate and smooth that neither dust nor dirt can settle on it. Body hairs are separate, one to a paw, right? One to a paw. Body hairs grow upwards, bluish black with collyrium, curling to the right. Body is perfectly straight like Brahma's. 7 convex surfaces on the hands, feet, shoulders, and trunk. Body front, that is the chest part, is like that of a lion's. No furrow between his shoulders. Proportions are like a banyan tree. His arm span equals his height. The curve of the great man's shoulders is evenly rounded. A perfect sense of taste, right? A perfect sense of taste. Jaw is like that of a lion. 40 teeth. 40 teeth. Teeth are all even. No spaces between the teeth. Teeth are large and brilliantly white. Tongue is very long and large, able to touch his forehead. right? A tongue that he is able to touch his forehead, right? A perfect voice, and this is uh, drawn parallels with a kuruvika, right? An Indian kaku, it is said, but this actually karavika, this karavika is not an Indian kaku, right? It is not an Indian kaku. A karavika is a mythical creature actually, and it is said that the karavika's sound, or the karavika sort of the sound that the karavika puts out, or sings, or whatever that one would call, is such a pleasant, mesmerizing sound that even an animal who is just about to feed on its prey would forget about its prey and raise its head up, right? So to that an extent, it is said that this Karavika's sort of sound, the voice is so pleasant and beautiful, and that is drawn parallels with the Buddha's voice, right? Like Brahma's also it says, eyes are a deep bluish black. Eyelashes are like a cow's, long and shapely. Hair between his eyebrows that is white, soft like cotton down. Head is shaped like a royal turban. These bhikkhus are these 32 marks of a great man. For the great man endowed with them, there is only two destinies: the wheel-turning monarch and a Buddha. We move on to the first one, feet with a level tread, the first mark. Right. Dil, can you read for us, please? You will have to unmute your mic first. Yes. Oh no, we can't hear you, Dil. Like last time. Okay. So someone, Dil, until you fix your Hemamali.
I got my mobile phone. It's difficult to read.
It's difficult to read.
Sorry, sorry, Bante.
All right. Who else can read? Devika?
My the wheel turner, 7 jewels. That's
No,
the place, isn't it?
we go from the feet of the level tread.
That's in which page?
Bante, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but you're echoing.
Feet with a, okay. Feet with a level tread. Okay.
Okay, now I'm clear.
Yes.
So you will read that.
Yeah. Devika?
Yes. Okay. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. 1.4.3, I think. Feet with a level tread. He places his foot evenly on the ground, evenly lifting it off the ground.
The 141, Devika.
Yeah, 1.41, yeah.
1.41, okay. Yeah. Feet with a level tread, okay. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, past existence, path abode, in human form, the Tathagata undertook mighty efforts in wholesome things, undertook unfaltering efforts in the purity of body, speech and mind by way of sharing gifts, undertaking the precepts, observing the precept day, the aposata, fulfilling duties towards mother, towards father, towards recluses, and towards Brahmins, serving the head of the family by way of some or other duty that were exceedingly good. 1.4.2. The divine refrain. On account of doing, accumulating, and increasing these karma after death, with the bodies breaking up, he was reborn in a happy destination, in heaven. There he was surpassed other devas in these 10 states, that is, by way of divine lifespan, divine beauty, divine joy, divine fame, divine lordship, divine form, divine sound, divine smell, divine taste, and divine touch. Having fallen from that state, coming to arise in the present existence, he obtains this mark of the great man.
Wonderful. Now, the first mark is arising from a person's ability or practice of being able to keep to one's determination of the practices of that which is wholesome, right?
Yes.
Of that which is wholesome. This is to say, right? This is to say, for example, now this is not an easy task, you may think, right? Usually when we start an act of wholesome, it is rarely that we finish that same act with the same mind. Why? Because we do or we start an act maybe not knowing the challenges and difficulty of performing the act. Maybe unaware of the people that you might have to work with during the course of performing this act. Maybe not knowing the challenges and difficulties that would arise within one's own self and life during the performance of this act. What happens? Our mind changes. Our mind changes. And because of this reason, what happens is this is made difficult, or this makes it difficult for us to continue that action with the same sense of mind that we first start. But the Buddha in this practice, what it says, what it talks about is the importance of determining to do something and completing it, seeing it through, however difficult the task might be, even though it might cost one greatly. This is the determination of the Buddha. The precepts, for example, Uposatha day, we start determining that the whole Uposatha we take up the precepts, right? And now the rest you can think of yourself.
Yes.
How,
Maybe you observe it.
how because of the cultural implications or whatnot, we conduct ourselves in a way, or it has become rather difficult, right, to continue with the determination that one placed upon oneself in the morning, right? Now, these things are absolutely important, right? This is what speaks of. Now, we say, now Vikala Bhojana, right? But Vikala Bhojana, the moment that you get a bit hungry, right? Vikala Bhojana also you forget, right? even while still in the temple sometimes, you see, Now these are things that sort of then hinders the journey that we sort of go. We speak highly of Nibbana and our urges to attain Nibbana, but we can't refrain from eating biscuit for afternoon tea, right? What Nibbana are we trying to talk about here? If we are to really look at this, right? The Buddha's determination, this is why it is absolutely, this sutta is an absolute guide on how our daily activities and daily life should look like. Should we require, or are we then able to develop the power of mind necessary, the beauty of mind necessary to attain to a state of Nibbana, right? To attain to the state of Nibbana. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, past experience, past abode in a human form, the Tathagata undertook many efforts in both.
Something happened, Sainas. We can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Sainas, something happened.
You?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So, where did you miss me?
At the very beginning. As you started, Bhante.
As I started, okay. Bhikkhu, in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode in a human form, the Tathagata undertook mighty efforts in wholesome things, undertook unfaltering efforts in the purity of body, speech, and mind, right? Body, speech, and mind by way of sharing gifts, undertaking the precepts, observing the precept day, the posata, fulfilling duties towards mother, father, including recluses and Brahmins, serving the head of the family by way of some or other duty that were exceedingly good, right? This is very much being able to keeping one's word, having or being stable upon that, right? Okay, Devika, please continue.
It's 1.4.3. Feet with a level tread. He places his foot evenly on the ground, evenly lifting it off the ground, evenly touching it with the entire sole of the foot. The wheel turner refrained. On account of his being endowed with this mark, if he remains living a house life, he becomes a wheel-turning king, universal monarch, Dharma Raja, just king, conqueror of the four quarters, a country blessed with stability and possessor of the seven jewels.
Devika, I'm going to stop you there, right?
Yes, because I'm reading from my iPad. iPhone.
So
I've got mine, Bhante, now.
So with this with this um, with this mark, and because of this mark, there are certain fruits or results that the Bodhisattva or not the Bodhisattva, the Buddha or the Chakravarti, the wheel-turning monarch would experience. The first being the universal monarch, if he remains, right, is unhindered by any unfriendly human or with hostile intent, right? His path is unhindered by anyone who has any hostile intent. Think about yourselves. Now, this is the way I want you to go through this sutta. Think about yourselves, right? Through your path of life, even though you have done so much for so many people, maybe, right? How many, sometimes our even our own friends and family, sometimes even our own children, unfortunately, right? Sometimes do cross us in ways that they do come into our lives with hostile intentions,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
Then where is the problem now, right? That the problem is then, or how do you cure this? You start practicing things or practicing wholesome actions with more stability and determination,
Right.
without breaking it in the middle,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Without breaking it in the middle, you do things. And let me tell you now, the thing way our minds work is such that the way our minds work is such that we want to first go for the big things, right? This is not just about the big things. The big things can be done well with the small things in proper place, right? The small things in proper place. This can be very much when you are sort of cooking. If you are cooking for your family, it is a dana. It can be done in a way that you fulfill your dana parami, right? It is not only when you cook for monks and monastics that it becomes a dana parami, right? So what do? When you're doing that, you do that with the intention of feeding your family, right? Nourishing your family, right? In that kind of a way, through these small deeds that we do 3 times a day, mind you, right? 3 times a day, you can now have 3 things that help you fulfill your dana parami, sort of push you closer to the Dhamma and the practice, right? That is what the message that this sutta gives us. That is why I find it so beautiful, right? And then, if as a Buddha, what happens is he is unhindered internally and externally by anyone unfriendly with hostile intent on account of greed, hate, or delusion, whether recluse, a Brahmin, a Deva, a Mara, a Brahma, or anyone else in the world. This is what he gets as a Buddha. Again, the nature of not being unhindered, right? The Buddha cannot be disturbed in that way, internally or externally, meaning in body, right? Or the sort of the environment that he is in, right? Again, sometimes you go to do something, right? There are so many hindrances, so many naysayers, right? Why is this? Again, come back to then what must you do? Practice wholesome efforts, actions, and keep the determination up until you end it. Be firm. If you decide on do something, don't decide easily, but if you decide on doing something, make sure that you complete it, right? Make sure that you complete it. Now, truthful, righteous, tamed, and sense guarded, abiding in moral purity of observance, delighting in giving, non-violent, harmless, he lived firmly committed to equality. By that karma, he reached heaven and enjoyed happiness and playful delight. From there, he fell and is reborn here, touching the earth with his even foot. The assembled soothsayers predicted, no obstruction is there for the one of even step. Whether he lives at home or again were to renounce, this mark will shine on his goal. Unhindered, he will leave the house life, unvanquished by the lords or enemies, nor is there any human here who can hinder him on account of his karmic fruits. If you want to do something unhindered, you'll be able to achieve and have success upon it, right? Success upon it. Now, moving on, the second mark. Because in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode, In human form, the Tathagata was a bringer of happiness to the masses, right? Now, this is because the second sign is the wheel signs on the soles of the feet, right? The signs, the wheels. Now, what is this? Or how, why did the Buddha get this? Or how did the Buddha get this, right? He was a bringer of happiness to the masses, the remover of dangers of fear and terror, a just provider of protection, defense, and guard, who gave gifts along with supplies, right? Who gave gifts along with supplies. Even if he is to then, when he is passes away and is reborn in the heavenly states, in the heavenly states also, he has predominance or sort of seniority, not seniority, but rather is more blessed. Why? How? By beauty, joy, fame, lordship, form, sound, smell, divinity, all this, because of this whole wholesomeness, bringing happiness to people all around, bring happiness to people all around, right? On the soles of his feet are wheels, each with 1,000 spokes, all rimmed and hubbed, complete in every way, right? And as a king, now as a result of that, what happens? What is the result of that? That the benefit that the Chakravarti or the Buddha receives? He has a great entourage, the Chakravarti. And the Buddha has a great following, right? Great following. Now we, as Buddhist monks, we see this quite often actually, right? It is not about wealth, really. Now we have people who come into the monasteries or the temples to give dana, right? To give dana. Some people, wealthy professionals, but no entourage. Some others we see, right, not so wealthy, doing very simple jobs, but wow, the whole temple is full, right? People to help them in every way, right? The curries are overflowing of different type, because everyone has come to help. Everyone has come to help. Why is this? And you can sort of see, when you look at them and when you sort of observe them, you can also see, why do they have such a lot of people backing them? You can see it, the reason why, right? And the Buddha, according to the Buddha, if you do not have that, if you might say, oh, when I want to do something, there's no one to help me. If you would think this, then what must you be doing? Every interaction that you have with your friends, with your family, bring happiness, right? Bring happiness, not burden. Bring comfort, not fire. In conversation, being able to support, happiness, togetherness, unitedness. This is what gives you good retinue, a good entourage, a following of people, the support of people all around. Now, when you take, I remember there was this very senior monk, right? Very senior monk that I knew about 10 to 15 years ago. And I was in a question and answer session, and one of the devotees asked him a question. It was during the time of the LTTE, right? And so one of the ladies asked a question, what is the reason? What is the reason that what is the reason, there are so many occult sciences and all of these things, right? What is the reason that none of these things can be done towards someone like Prabhakaran? Right? And the answer of this monk was, regardless of whether the person is doing good or bad, a person who wields that amount of power and control over people wields that amount of power because of some sort of meritorious deed of the past. Because of that reason, because it is so supported by merit, it is almost impossible to hinder that person with occult sciences, right? With certain occult sciences. Now, this then sort of goes down to say, now presidents, people who have that sort of power, they arrive and they come to those sorts of positions because of a certain amount of, it is believed, of merit, right? Bringing together, uniting, right? Uniting, bringing people together. Think about your life. Do I do this? Do we unite people? Or do our words separate and sort of disrupt people's relationships? Or do we unite and bring people happiness? That is the true practice of a Kalyana Mitra, a person, he's a true human being as well. A good human being, where we help in these relationships, right? And as the Buddha has this great following. Moving on, right? Moving on. Long ago, in past times, in previous births, as a human, as a bringer of happiness to many, a dispeller of dangers of fear and terror, zealous in guarding and protecting and defending. By that karma, he reached heaven, right? Now, this is the sort of the poem also, which is there, the verses, right? I want you to think about this. Now, this verse, right? As a human, he was a bringer of happiness to many, a dispeller of dangers of fear and terror, zealous in guarding, protecting, and defending. What I am thinking is a parent, right? It is very much in line with the attribute of a very good parent, right? Guarding, zealous, guarding, protecting, defending, fear and dispeller of fear and terror. These things are done by one who has a great amount of compassion towards the other, right? A great amount of compassion towards the other, right? The Buddha referred to Sariputta and Moggallana, right, as a father and mother, isn't it? Sariputta being the father, Moggallana being the mother, right? In that way, why would he compare two of the most foremost enlightened beings after the Buddha to a mundane father and mother? A person that anyone with a child can become? Why? Because of those sort of attributes that compassion brings out. The compassion that a father and mother has towards a child brings such a safeguarding sort of protection. And that is what the Buddha was referring to, right? And reading this, I am reminded of that, right? Reminded of that. And most of you are fathers and mothers as well, right? By that karma, he reached heaven and enjoyed happiness and playful delight. From there he fell and is reborn here, gaining wheels on both his feet. The one with wheels full of 1,000 spokes, the assembled soothsayers predicted, having seen the boy with the mark of 100 merits surrounded, he will be with 4 crushers. Those that are absolutely devoted to you. Absolutely devoted to you. They will not even allow a person to speak ill of you in your absence. Why? Because you have given them so much of good in this life, right? What beautiful life, what a beautiful life that is, that in your absence, your friends protect your name, right? What a beautiful life that is, right? For such is he with the full hubbed wheels. If such a one does not turn to the going forth, he, turning the wheel, will rule the earth and kings would here become his vassals, right? Kings would be under him like his slaves. Of great fame is he, if such a one turns to going forth. Wisely delighting in the desire of renunciation, he would be surrounded by gods, humans, asuras, sakras, and rakshas. Surrounded by Gandhavas, Nagas, Skygoers, and four-legged, worshipped by gods and humans as a supreme one of great fame, of the great fame he is. Now we go on to the next mark. His limbs and frame. Bhikkhus, in whatever birth, past existence, because the Tathagata, having given up the killing of living beings, refrained from harming living beings, laid down rod and sword, conscientious, merciful, dwelled beneficial and compassionate to all living beings. Now remember these words: conscientious, merciful, dwelled beneficial and compassionate to all living beings. So this does not only include the killing part, this also includes how you treat the living, right? Sometimes when we get into an argument, and sometimes when our egos are shattered, torn, or somewhat harmed, our egos, we are not very forgiving. We are very egoistic. Because we have our comfort zones, it is very easy for us to then, what do? We say, okay, to hell with you, I'm going to do my own thing, right? That is not the way. That the Buddha only says you do if this is a person who arouses within you hindrances that you cannot control. If this person's vision brings you, if this person's sight brings you so much of anger that you cannot, or you have gone through the practice of trying to let go of that anger, but you can't, you fail miserably, then there, the Buddha says, at last, after 10 or so, 7 or so steps, the Buddha says, if nothing works, then, of course, do not wish to cite that person. Not because of a fault of that person, because your mind is that weak, right? Because your mind is that weak. So remember that, having given up killing living beings, refrain from harming living beings, laid down rod and sword, conscientious, merciful, dwelled beneficial and compassionate to all living beings, right? Even if he is born in the dual realms, in the divine realms, he is supreme to the other deities as well. Because of this, he obtains these three marks of a great man. What are these three marks? Projecting heels, long fingers, and his body is perfectly straight like Brahmas, right? Like Brahmas. The wheel. And because of this, as a king, he is long-lived and endures long. His longevity is guarded. No unfriendly human with hostile intent is capable of ending his life during that interval. This is what the king gets. What does the Buddha get? The Buddha is also long-lived. He endures long, his longevity is guarded. No one, whether recluse, a Brahmin, a Mara, Brahma, or anyone else in the world with hostile intent is capable of ending his life. Why? Because of not bringing any harm to a human being, being merciful towards beings. being merciful towards living beings. This could be any being of any size, any being of any size, mind you. Those of you who have pets in your houses, are you treating your pets properly? Right? Are you treating your pets properly? These things are very important, right? These things are very important. It is very unfortunate sometimes, in this country, of course, we love pets and we have some sort of cordiality in an agreement in the way that we treat pets. But sometimes in these Asian countries, sometimes what you sort of feed the pet has not been washed for weeks. And you continue spooning food into that same sort of bowl again. Disgusting, right? Disgusting. There's probably a preta eating from that also, including your dog and a preta, because it's so disgusting. Right? In that sort of way. All of these things count. There is no cheating this path, because this path is a reflection of who you are in every single moment. In every single moment. Sometimes when we journey upon this path, now when I'm telling you these things, you might be thinking, okay, we must do all of these things. There's so much to do. How can we do all of this? This, when you speak in this manner, it is like you are here and the path is here. This is a problem. If for the amount of time that you are here and the path is somewhat foreign or external to you, you will never fully relish in the paths, in the fruits of the path. The path should very much be a part of you. This is not to be enforced. It's to be understood and practiced, not enforced. Right? You cannot force a wholesome mind. How could you force a wholesome mind? This is to be accepted. This is the right way of doing something. This is the right way of doing something. Right? So, as the Buddha, he is also long-lived. The Buddha's life, Janaka Kamma, cannot be harmed. Why is that? Because the Buddha respected life and as a practice did not bring harm to life. Rather, there is a beautiful Jataka story where the Buddha is the head of it's not a monkey for sure. It is somewhat like a gorilla, like an ape, right? Somewhat of a big made sort of breed, or that in that family of monkeys, someone like a gorilla or ape. And the Buddha is the leader. And so hence the Buddha was also big made as let's refer to him as an ape. So this ape was rather big made and sort of very, very sort of, he was the alpha. So there were hunters who were coming behind. Actually, not hunters, but a lion who was coming to hunt them. So they were fleeing, and while fleeing, they came to a position where there was a path. There was a sort of a jump to do, which many of the other apes couldn't do, right? And the crossing was the bridge, or the cross. It was a bridge. The bridge was broken halfway. And the Buddha being so big, the ape being so big, he could sort of reach out and sort of create a bridge that these sort of other apes could sort of jump from. During this time, all the apes crossed quite fast because everyone was caring towards their leader, because of course it was painful for every ape sort of crossing was painful to the Buddha's back. But Devadatta, also being within the clan, what Devadatta did was he jumped onto the Buddha's back, and these apes, they have these sort of claws right? Gorilla or apes, they have these claws and clawed the Buddha's back, right? And whilst doing that, what the alpha ape or the Buddha was sort of shouting at Devadatta, saying, Devadatta, or rather, whatever the name is, cross over fast, even while this Devadatta was clawing deeper into the Buddha's back, right? That is the kind of guna that we should have within ourselves. That we should sort of even more than have, aspire towards, aspire towards, aspire towards. That is very important. That is very important. And know the reason why you're doing it. This is the development of guna. This is what being a Buddha Putra is. This is what being a person working towards Nibbana is. A person who can attain Nibbana is not just a person who can meditate. No. Meditation is very much important, yes. But with that guna is very important. Guna is very important, right? Now, moving on to the other. Right, the 16th mark, we are going from, we are jumping here and there, but we will be covering all of them. The sutta has been translated in a way that there is a sort of way that it flows. All right, bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, right, the Tathagata gave exquisite and delicious food, hard and soft, savories and drinks, right? Savories and drinks, the best of the best, right? Because of that, after death, upon arriving at a happy state, a happy destination in heaven, he was superior in all of these 10 attributes, right? The 10 attributes is by lifespan, beauty, joy, fame, lordship, form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. The Buddha was sort of the practitioner, or the Buddha, the Bodhisattva was supreme. He was high, he was better looking than everyone else. Why? Because of these wholesome states, right? And because of these 7 convexes, the 7 convexes are on both hands, on both feet, on top of both shoulders, and on the trunk. Right? So this is the backs of the 4 limbs, the shoulders and the trunk are well rounded with flesh. Right? Well rounded with flesh. Right? Do you get that? Yeah? It's well rounded with flesh. Right? And because of this, as a king, he gets exquisite and delicious food, hard and soft, savories and drink, as a king. And as a Buddha as well, you receive good food, the best offerings of people. And didn't that happen to the Buddha? The Buddha received the best, right? The Buddha received the best. All because it is said, this is because in the past we have given similarly. In the past we have given similarly. It is very important that when we do give, and it is part of our culture also, it is part of our culture, the guest is like the god in the house, as the Indians say, right? So I don't know whether Sri Lankans say, but I know that the Indians say it, right? Do the Sri Lankans also say the guest is a god? Not to that extent, neither. No. But the Indians, I know, they say that the guest is a godly figure who enters the house, right? But we do hospitality. I think hospitality is very, very strong in Sri Lanka, in India, in most of these countries in the East. Hospitality, we know how to treat people, right? And we do take pride in treating people very well, right? But it is important to not treat people with pride, for pride. but treat people for their wellness and good, right? For their wellness and good. For some reason, we see certain sort of these practices somewhat changing, but it is quite sad. But we still see them very much in many people, right? Which is really good. Being able to treat another person with exquisite and delicious foods, right? This is the reason that the Buddha, as as a homeless sort of ascetic too, he was treated well, right? He was treated well. Moving on. Tender and webbed hands and feet. Tender and webbed hands and feet. The Tathagata supported people through the four bases of conciliation. That is, through giving, pleasant speech, beneficial conduct, and impartiality. And impartiality, right? This means literally supporting people through giving pleasant speech, right? And convincing words, beneficial conduct, and impartiality. It is very important that when we do live in a society, that we do support the people in that society, right? When we would take the general norm of how we see good people are also people who support, come out of their homes and do things for the society they live in, isn't it? Right? Those are the people who become quite popular, right? Why is that? Because that is what draws people. That is what draws the hearts of people, when you do support the community that you live with, right? The community that you live with. And because of this, the Buddha received soft, tender hands and feet. Why? Because of that care. Because of that care. And the feet are net-like, meaning they are evenly spaced. They are evenly spaced. And because of this, again, right? Because of this, again, you get, now before it was an entourage, right? Before it was an entourage. Here, it's nature. You get a very good entourage of loyal supporters who guard you, right? As a king, he is well supported by Brahmins, householders, market towns, folks, country folk, accountants, chief ministers, bodyguards, doorkeepers, ministers, courtiers, vassals, all of them. They are very well protected, right? And supported. As monks as well, he is supported by monks, nuns, laymen, lay women, gods, humans, nagas, Gandhavas, all of these people. They're supported. Now in Burma, when we were living in Burma, because initially because I was living in quite a popular sort of monastery. Pauk Sayadaw, one day he woke up in the morning and he said, and he had a sort of a epiphany to say, I am going to fall ill quite soon. So I'm going to do my last retreat 2 years ahead. So it was 2 years ahead. He said, I'm going to do my last retreat. As I remember, it was in 2018, I think. 2018 or 17. So he got up that morning and he told, I'm going to fall sick, which he did. And I'm going to do my last retreat in 2017 or 18. So, and I want to do it in this, we can't do it in Paok, the main branch, because there are not enough kutis and there are already a lot of monks. We need a new monastery with 1,000 kutis, right? Within a month, all what he required, he had no part in the building, construction, development, nothing. The devotees within, and ended up, there were 2 monasteries built, each with 1,000, right? Each with 1,000. That is not something we have seen in Sri Lanka or anywhere else. That amount, and Pauk Sayadaw is a most eminent spiritual lead and a great sort of meditation monk, right? And to that extent, even other sort of preaching Bhantes who were there that I saw, every day minister, sometimes even the president comes, right, to offer dana to him. And every time there is a new Mercedes Benz which is released, people fight over the opportunity to offer the newest one, right? To that extent. And this is not something which is normal. It is not. It is absolutely not. It is a great amount of merit. I think the only person that we can compare from Sri Lanka is Venerable the Asapur monk.
Shrivat Goda Jnanananda.
Yeah, Venerable Jnanananda. I think that is the only monk that we could sort of compare. But even so, in Burma, those monks are quite eminent, and a lot of merit behind, a lot of merit. And this is, as the Buddha says, because of being able to, having supported the people, right? Having supported the people. Now, I think in a way we can also draw, no, we won't go there. So, moving on, right? So then if you feel that you are lacking support, you know what to do. Give support to others. Give support to others. That is what is important. Support them by means of gifts. Support them by means of speech. Support them in whatever way that you can. Motivate people to do things, right? Motivate people to do things. It has, some people say when, there are immigrants or people from our country, coming into these countries, sometimes the community, because of some sort of very, I don't have the words, right? You sort of demotivate them from staying in the West. Oh, why are you staying here? Why are you staying here? You better go back. You better go back. But you have been here sometimes. They have been here for 30, 40 years. Right? It has become, it's not only in our culture, but in many different cultures, people tend to do this, right? These things are not within Dhamma. These things are not within Dhamma. Within the Dhamma is we support people. We empower people. We give people strength through our words and actions. Moving on. Then we have raised ankles, and upward growing body hair, the 7th and the 14th marks. Bhikkhus, in whatever past birth, past existence, past abode, in a human form, the Tathagata was a speaker of words connected with the Dhamma. Right? Connected with the Dhamma. Pointing it out to the masses, a Dharma giver who brought good and happiness to living beings. Through the Dhamma, bringing a sense of happiness, clarity, calm, bliss to other people, alleviating other people's suffering through the Dhamma. That is what this entails. Because of this, one is born with high raised ankles. His ankles are elevated, not near the heels as in other people, so that the soul can be seen as he walks. Okay. Now we are not very familiar with these beauty standards, might I add, right? We are not very familiar with these beauty standards because our beauty standards are very much different in this time, right? In this time. But it is also mentioned the 32 marks are, it's not fixed, by the way. It is at that time what is beautiful, that is what appears, right? At that time, what is accepted and seen as the most beautiful, that is what the Buddha's or the Chakravarti's form is like, right? That is what the Chakravarti's form is like. So, as a king, because of this, and then he has upward growing hair, right? Upward growing hair. Because of this, as a king, as a result, he is the foremost and best chief, supreme and distinguished amongst those who enjoy sense pleasures. This is what he gets as a king. The foremost and the best chief, supreme and distinguished, honored. As the Buddha, he is the foremost and best chief, supreme and distinguished by all beings, right? By all beings. This is what he gets as the Buddha. As the Buddha, he is honored by everyone. Tun lokagru, right? Because of this, now what is this? Because of what? Because of the fact of alleviating people's suffering through Dhamma, right? Through Dhamma. You know, as a monk who has now been teaching for, about 10 years maybe, I would say I have two experience. When we use Dhamma to alleviate, people will do anything for you, right? People are so devoted and is very ready to do as you please. Why? Because of that bliss that you brought into their lives, right? People are willing and ready to do anything for you. So likewise, we see it practicing in such a way, we see the benefits in this life itself. In this life itself. So, moving on. Then we had the 8th mark, right? Now, are there any questions that you might have? Any questions that you might have? We have 10 minutes left. I think for today we can, finish this for today.
Yes, Bante, a quick one. What
Yes.
is Gandhava? Gandhava?
Gandhavas. It's a type of being, right? So it is a class. It is a class of beings, Gandharvas, right? So it is actually, we'll be discussing this, I think, in the Abhidhamma class, right? In the Abhidhamma class, but it is a class of beings. Gandharvas are somewhat like a preta, actually, I think, as I remember.
Is it like Asura?
Asuras. So Asuras also, there are the hellish Asuras and the fallen Asuras, right?
Yeah.
Gandharvas, as I remember, are like a class of low beings, right? That is what I remember it as. I could be. So Gandharva, right? Gandharva is actually a heavenly being, right? Heavenly being who are like guardian sort of positions, right? But there are a class of heavenly beings.
Thank you.
And Gandharvas, we also see the Gandharvas in a lot of our Sri Lankan art, right? Inscribed into the stones.
Yeah.
Right, inscribed onto the stones, wearing a sort of like a sarong, so not a sarong, but rather like really like a Kandyan dance almost, with the sort of with the crown,
Uh,
right?
others like the gatekeepers.
Yes, yes. They are usually projected near the gate, right? And also on the foundation of a chaitya also sometimes you
Yes, that's
find
right.
others,
Yeah, I know.
right? And the old vihara gatherers
Yes.
like Kalaniya, you find the Gandharvas on the sort of the bottom of the
Yeah.
floor. Yeah.
Now I remember. Thank you, Bante.
Yes.
Mm.
All right. Any other questions?
The one thing I agree, we have to be pleasant when we communicate, but sometimes with sons and daughters, if you want to correct them or if they're dysfunctional or not doing something right, sometimes we have to talk, but it may not be pleasant.
Yes, it might not be pleasant. That is very true. That is very true. But at one point we must also, at one point I think it is sometimes we mess things up also, I believe, sometimes in the beginning.
Sorry?
I think it is something that we have to, it is easy if we do it from the beginning. But if we have really messed it up, for
Yeah.
example, if we have not given our children good values and all of these things, right? Then in that kind of a way, if we have really messed up, then it's going to be extremely difficult.
Yes.
Extremely difficult, right? But at the end of the day, love and compassion, I believe, can sort of succeed. But we have to be very, very careful. Yes, absolutely, Pushpa. We have to be very, very careful,
Yeah.
right? We have to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
And but always know, although it might be difficult, we must also try, right? We must also try.
Yes.
But if we fail, we must also not be disheartened at our failed efforts, but try again.
Thank you, Bante.
Yeah, yeah. There was this lady, I think I've told you, she, whenever I go to Candy, she comes to my Dhamma talks. And, every time, I think I've told all of you, and every time that she comes, the husband does not like her leaving the house, right? So when she goes home, she's from one of these villagers. So, so whenever she goes back home, the husband beats her, right? And all the neighbors who also come to my talks sees that. So one day when she left early, uh, the devotee's house who I was at said, Bante, she's having such a problem. Her husband is very violent and does not like her participating in Dhamma, right? Participating in Dhamma. So in many ways, if we lead a Dhammic life, start leading a Dhammic life from the early stages of our life, then a lot of complications can be sort of avoided. But sometimes with many religions, I believe, people who use religion to sort of crush or sort of forget about their insecurities tend to sometimes get into more trouble with their own religions. What religion should be is something which helps people tackle and get rid of their insecurities by their own power and might, right? Which for me, I believe Buddhism does that, right? Buddhism does not tell you that, the Buddha is coming to take you to heaven or anything of that sort. It is all on your efforts. You reap your efforts, do that which is good, right? So in that way we must work with ourselves, work on ourselves to achieve these things. So all right, so if there are no other questions, we will wrap up today's session. Let me know what future sutras you would like to do. Also, now with the second COVID coming, with the second COVID situation uh, coming back, unfortunately, let me know how sort of what we could do to support, if there are different programs that we could have, even, for example, future talks that we could have, or podcasts or whatnot. Let us know. Drop me an email if you have any suggestions about how we could possibly support people through, again, this difficult time. And it would be, a bit more difficult now because it's the winter, right? So it's going to be cold and you're going to be stuck at home, right? Especially because most of you are also in a vulnerable age, right? So if there is anything that we could do to support, let us know. It is a very challenging time for many people. I'm sure even for your children who are working, who might have already lost their jobs or are in challenging, difficult positions, right? It is not only the middle class or the poor who is affected, it is the wealthy are also affected in equal ways. So let us support one another. And if there is anything that we could do, new programs that we could introduce to support all of you and people that you know, then let us know. Drop me an email and we will try to sort of arrange something accordingly in a sustainable way that we can manage it. So thank you very much. I will see you all on Saturday. And remember, I've sent you all the
Yes.
Dhamma talk. So please send it to your friends and family. Bante or Venerable Sri Panya is one of my oldest friends. And we ordained together. Actually,
It looks like you, Bante.
yes, I've been receiving text messages and Bante, it is you, this is you. I've been like, no, this is not me. Yeah, he was a former, he's a doctor of medicine. He specialized in immunology, and then his father was second in command after Sarath Fonseca. So after his father died, he from America. He was working in America in Cali. He was in Washington, and then he moved. He flew to Burma and got ordained. So now he's residing. He's it's quite a famous teacher in Australia, very close to Ajahn Brahm, and he's doing a lot of teachings. And he's actually going to be moving to the Dhamma Center and residing with me at the Dhamma Center after COVID finishes. So,
Very happy to hear that.
so he's going to be my partner in crime.
A good man, Bante.
Yeah. So please do come and meet your future sort of second monk. So and also send it to your friends and family who would be interested. So see you all on Saturday.
Okay.
Take care and good night.
Good
Good night, Bante.